In today's video, I'm going to tell you how to get better at art really, really fast. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Michelle, and on this channel you can learn more about painting and drawing, in particular watercolour, but other media too, also business, social media and motivation for artists. So please do consider subscribing. If you click the bell notification, you'll get notified every time I have a new video for you. So what we're looking at today is a method of learning. Now this isn't just a fluffy motivational video. After I've explained to you what this method is called and what it is, I'm going to give you 10 tips that will help you to apply this method specifically towards art practice and drawing and painting, and help you to move forward and improve your own painting at a much faster rate than you would otherwise do. Practice makes perfect. That's what they say, isn't it? And it's true. The more you practice, the more you will improve. But the problem with practice is it really isn't very fast, is it? In fact, you can just come to a complete standstill. And we all know people that have been practicing something, you know, maybe it's painting, maybe it's golf, and they've been practicing for years and years and they never get any better. And that's the situation you can find yourself in with practice. So practice can become just sort of this mindless repetition without any improvement. What we're going to look at today is a method of learning that's been talked about for years. There's been books written about it recently, but actually this method of learning has been used for far longer, you know, hundreds, even thousands of years, because it is naturally the way that people gravitate towards learning. People that become very, very good at something, people that become an expert in something, they tend to use this method, whether they have read a book on it or whether they don't even know that that's what it's called. What we're talking about today is something called deliberate practice. So before I move on to giving you 10 tips of how to use deliberate practice to help with your painting and drawing, I'm going to explain to you what it is. Now, unlike practice alone, deliberate practice is much more specific. It's targeted, it's focused, it's about analysing your progress and moving ahead and moving towards specific goals. So why don't more people use this method? Well, the main reason is it's not hard to understand, it's not difficult to do, but it is tough and it can be uncomfortable. It involves facing up to your fears. It involves analysing your work and, you know, accepting your bad points, accepting what's wrong with your work and targeting to move forward. So it also makes you move outside of your comfort zone. But if you really are, you know, if you're determined to be better at painting and drawing, then this is the way to move forward. So we're going to look now at 10 ways you can use deliberate practice specifically to improve your painting and drawing. So deliberate practice often involves getting other people to look at your work, and we're going to look at that later in the video. But the first step, so tip number 1 I'm giving you, is to learn to analyse your own work. So perhaps you finish a painting and you look at it and think, oh, I don't like that very much. Well, that simply isn't good enough. It's not going to help you to move forward. So I want you to become sort of hypercritical of your own work, not in a self-depreciating way or, oh, everything I do is rubbish. I want you just to learn to analyse your work and to find the good points and to find the bad points and to find the strengths and to find the weaknesses. I want you to look at everything. So when you finish a painting, before you cast it aside and start on another one, I want you to look at every aspect of it. Look at the composition, look at the tone, look at the colour mixing. You know, look at the actual technique of painting and go beyond that. Don't even think just about the painting itself or the drawing itself. Consider the materials you're using. Could they be improved? Is there something wrong with them? Are they causing you problems? Even go as far to consider your own mood, perhaps the time of day. Do you always mess your paintings up when you're tired or you're in a rush? So deliberate practice starts with self-analysis and with looking at your finished piece of work in depth and really trying to understand what's right with it and what's wrong with it. Tip number 2 is, after you have figured out what's wrong with your work, particularly perhaps the one thing about this piece of work that you dislike the most, I want you to stop before you do anything else and seek out a solution. So that may mean reading an article, it may mean finding a video, it may mean asking your art tutor or a friend or somebody else at your painting club to help you with it. So I don't want you to move forward onto the next painting until you've had a good go at least at resolving the issues with the first painting. So once you've analysed your painting and found that this particular thing is wrong, then seek out a solution to that exact problem and don't stop until you find something that helps you. Tip number 3 for using deliberate practice to improve your work is to stop comparing yourself to other people who are on the same journey as you. We all move forward at different times and we all have different strengths and weaknesses. There's no point getting annoyed because the person in the art class next to you has grasped a 2-point perspective and a year later you still don't understand it. You know, it could be that you're better at colour mixing than they are. And the truth about comparing yourself to other people is it's a total waste of your time. It saps your energy. It's time that could be spent improving your own work. So that's tip number 3. Stop worrying about other people's journey and concentrate on your own journey and what you need to do and what you need to learn to improve your paintings. Tip number 4 is to beware flattery. Well, we all like people to say nice things about our work, don't we? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with showing your work to people and getting some positive feedback. There's always something nice about your work. However, if you find that you are only showing work to people who love it and you're avoiding those difficult conversations and you don't want to be upset by anybody saying anything negative about your work, perhaps you show your work only to friends and family. Now, it's very easy to show paintings to people that can't paint at all. If somebody can't paint at all, then anything that somebody shows them that's, vaguely well put together, they're going to be super, oh, aren't you clever? Aren't you wonderful? You've done a fantastic job. As I said, there's nothing wrong with a bit of flattery, but if you're only getting flattery for your work and if you're never getting any constructive criticism, then you're never going to move forwards, because not only it can be difficult to self-critique your own work, so you certainly should try to learn that, as we spoke about in tip 1, but you also need other people to help you with that. So if you only get flattery about your work, then it's not going to point out any of the bad things, and there may be things that are wrong with your work that you never ever find out about because everybody's being super nice. So following on from tip 4, we have tip 5, which is ask people for a critique, even non-artists. If you're showing something to family members, make it clear, you have to make it clear that you won't be upset, and don't get upset because they really are helping you. So you have to make it clear that they can give you a little bit of criticism and you're not going to be upset by it. Say to them, it's great that you like this, but I'd really like to know where you think I could improve. And they might say, well, I'm not an artist, I don't know. Well, just say, well, what don't you like? Is there something that you don't like about it? So get your criticism from non-artists and friends and family members, but also get your criticism from teachers. So if you have an art tutor or if you go to a painting group, actually ask for criticism. Say to your tutor, can you help me? Can you tell me where you think I could improve this painting? Or going forward, are there any areas you think that I should be working on? Another place to ask for a critique is in online groups. Certain groups, certainly Facebook groups, they often have some kind of rule where members are not allowed to criticise other members' work unless they have asked for that criticism. It just stops groups becoming full of trolls and people like that, and full of people that are just throwing abuse at other people's work. So it may be that in order to get some kind of constructive criticism, you have to ask for it. So when you put your painting up in a Facebook group, then do say to people, I'd really like help with this. I'd really like you to tell me where you think I could improve. And you'll get all sorts of suggestions. They won't all be good suggestions. There'll be a huge range of good and bad. But if you find that lots of people are saying the same thing or pointing out the same area, then that's a little hint that that might be something for you to work on going forwards. Now, you'll notice that the name of this YouTube channel is In the Studio with Michele Webber, and that's the exact same name as my Facebook group. So do feel free to come along there and ask for a critique, and myself and the other members will have a look at your work. Tip number 6 is to ignore enablers and specifically not to seek them out. Now, there are always things that you don't want to learn, that you just think, oh, that's a bit boring, that's a bit tiresome, Maybe it's perspective on buildings, maybe it's drawing. Don't be Googling how to paint without drawing, or how to avoid using perspective. There will be somebody on the internet that has written an article. You will find articles, you will find videos on all subjects. You will find people telling you that it's absolutely fine to paint without ever learning to draw properly. and you will find people telling you don't bother stretching your watercolour paper. You will find people saying, oh, don't need to learn about perspective, just feel your way through a painting. Now, you've got to use a bit of common sense here. You've got to ask yourself, does it actually seem right? It's a bit like those memes on Facebook that you see where somebody's put a picture up, so, you know, Prosecco, it's got 3% vitamin C, alcohol is good for you, and everyone says, yay, I can drink more. You know, it's rubbish. We all know it's rubbish. We all know alcohol's not good for you. And it's the same with painting. You know, technical skills are the basis of everything. I don't care how you want to paint, whether you want to paint really loosely, or whether you want to paint abstracts, or whether you want to paint fantasy art. Technical drawing and painting skills in any medium at all are the underpinning, the basis of learning. And you do need to learn those things. So don't look at people who are enabling you. Perhaps they don't want to learn to draw, so they'll tell you not to bother learning to draw. They'll tell you that it's not necessary. And it can be a way of us avoiding the things that are tough to learn. It can be a way of avoiding the things that we don't want to do, is to seek out validation on other people that are telling us that it's just fine not to bother learning those things. So that's just something to be aware of. Don't go along with people that are just enabling your bad habits. Following on from that, we have tip number 7, which is do the thing that you least want to do. It's well documented. I'm a big reader of, it's very sad, I know, but I'm a big reader of business and motivation and self-help books. And one of the things that they talk about is that resistance is actually a pathway. If you feel resistance towards doing something, the chances are that's the thing you need to do the most. We all put off doing the difficult thing till last. If there's something that you really don't want to do, ask yourself if you actually don't want to do it, if you're just putting it off because it's difficult. You know, if you think, so I don't want to draw figures, I don't want to put figures in my landscapes, you know, ask yourself, is this true, or do you just think that you can't draw figures very well? If that's the case, go off and spend some time learning to draw figures. It's the same with things like perspective, with drawing. Perhaps your difficulty is colour mixing. Have you told yourself, and do you tell other people, I only like to work in black and white, I don't really like colour? Well, you know, the truth is, I don't think I've ever met anybody that doesn't like colour. You can see by the crazy stuff I'm wearing, I like colour. And if you tell yourself this because you are scared of learning colour mixing, or you think you'll never manage to understand colour mixing, then that's the exact thing. You know, life is telling you, by this resistance in your brain, life is telling you that that's the place you need to be going towards. And this is all, you know, what deliberate practice is about. It's about doing the stuff that's tough, because the stuff that's the toughest is what will make you improve the quickest. Tip number 8 is just to practice more often. So although we spoke at the beginning that just practicing again and again, sort of mindless repetition, won't make you improve, if you are practicing these principles that I speak about in this video, then practicing more is going to get you to your goal faster. So if you find you only paint once a week when you visit your art class, then you're going to find that you're not going to improve as quickly as if you were painting more often. So ask yourself how you could incorporate more practice of painting and drawing into your own life. Now for me, I find it very difficult. I mean, I go to exercise classes almost every night. I do martial arts training, I do yoga. The reason I go to classes is because if I were left to my own devices, I would do no exercise at all. I have to have the motivation of being in a class. Now you might not be like that. You might be perfectly capable and have the time. Perhaps you're retired, you can practice at home every day. So if that's the case, I advise you to have some kind of schedule at least, and to put specific time aside each day, or you know, several times a week to practice. If like me you find you only get on with things when you're in the company of other people, then consider increasing the amount of art classes that you do. Or often, I know in England we have art groups where you can go along and it's not tutored, but you can just sit and paint with other people. If that sort of thing doesn't exist where you are, then try and think about some online classes. You know, there are lots of online courses that you can take. Some way of improving and increasing the amount that you practice, this deliberate practice, this idea of constant improvement. Because if you only are painting once a week, you're not going to get better very fast at all. Tip number 9 is to listen to your art teacher, your art tutor, or find another one. I've had people come to my art classes. I had one lady come along for 2 years, and I swear she never listened to a thing I said. You know, I could walk around the class and I could say something like, well, I think the angle on that building is a little bit wrong. You might want to decrease that angle, just lower it down a little bit. I think it'll make your house look more realistic. And I'd walk around the class, and I'd come back, and she'd be putting paint on the building that still had the line in that was wrong. Now, it's really difficult, this, because art is subjective, and not all tutors or all teachers are going to be right all of the time. But if you have a reasonable teacher, then do try to listen to them. At least give it a go. Implement the things they say, because if you never listen to other people, and I've had even quite good artists that are just not ever prepared to listen to other people. If you don't listen to criticism from your teachers and from your tutors, then you will never improve. If you feel that your art teacher is always wrong and that the advice is always bad, then the simple answer is that's not the right teacher for you. You know, find another one. And the whole thing about deliberate practice is it's doing the things that are difficult for you. If the teacher that lives 5 minutes away from your house is not very good, and the one that you'd really like to go to is a 40-minute drive, if you can manage it, take that 40-minute drive and go to that better art tutor. So it's really, really important that you find people that do help you, and that, more importantly, that you are willing to listen to them and implement their advice. So next time you're in an art class or watching something online, ask yourself, do I just listen to this stuff, and do I never actually put it into practice? So that's my tip number 9. Find a tutor that you are prepared to listen to and implement the things that they say. Tip number 10 is that defeatism is just an excuse. So we all have negative thoughts, and sometimes we speak about our work negatively. It's okay to an extent, but if you find yourself constantly being completely negative about your own work and making loads of excuses for the reasons why you can't improve, then you're just trying to let yourself off the hook. So if you find yourself saying, oh, well, I'll never get any better at this, or my work is always rubbish, or no one in my family can paint, I'm too old to get the hang of this stuff now. People that get better for painting and drawing, they obviously haven't got a full-time job and 3 kids, have they? You know, defeatism is your enemy. It's not going to help you improve at all. And actually, in some respects, it's a cop-out, because it's actually easier to speak that way about your own work than it is to make yourself do the work and to find the solutions that you need to move forward. So this video has been all about deliberate practice, and you can use deliberate practice in any area of your life, but it's especially useful within the arts, where there's such a wealth of different pathways and different information. So I hope you found this really, really useful. If you have, please do share it with other people. If you can like and share the video, then that helps my little channel to grow, and I'll be very, very grateful. Super grateful for all of those of you who have subscribed so far. If you're not subscribed to the channel, I'd love to have you on board. Do pop over to my Facebook group too. It's got exactly the same name as this channel, and you can watch another one of my videos right now.